After 7 years of reigning in Hebron, King David takes up the challenge that will seal his name as Israel's most famous ruler in history. To do this, he must conquer Jebus city, which does not belong to any tribe of Israel. The problem is that many armies have tried already to capture this fortress, but the massive walls and elevated location made the city invincible. Does the Bible give us the secret tactics that made David accomplish the impossible? I invite you to the next episode of the History of Jerusalem, where we will investigate this mystery. At the same time, do not forget to subscribe to this channel to receive notifications about the next episodes on YouTube. I cordially invite you. David was an excellent hero. When writing a book or a screenplay for a movie, you cannot dream of a better story. The youngest brother, a boy of great courage and faith, disregarded by many, shows a brave heart by defeating the giant standing at the heart of an eternal enemy. Despite the fame and recognition, he remains a simple boy with a sensitive nature and a faithful soul. He writes songs, he makes girls fall in love with him, he experiences real friendships and betrayal, the envy of those he respects. Eventually, he becomes king himself, unites all the tribes of Israel, and as a seasoned warrior, he wins countless victories in Canaan. God himself promises that his descendant will rule forever. But then, he shows that he is a human also, subject to a temptation that leads to murder and adultery. He suffers consequences, repents, but ultimately triumphs as a wise ruler who begins a legendary dynasty. This brief summary of David's biography shows why he is an icon to this day. When I first read the books of Samuel for the first time, this extensive plot made me enjoy it. This legend of David's name has survived to this day, and it is especially evident in reborn Israel. Every nation needs heroes, and Israel has a hero that the whole world knows. No wonder that David's name is used to name hotels, streets, wine, balsams, matzahs, waffles, cigars, or even Chinese soups. Many films have also been made showing David's life. At the same time, until 1993, most of the scientific community did not seriously treat David's story, but only as a fairy tale that colors many events to obtain the desired effect. Moreover, some have argued that David may never have existed. And if he did, he certainly did not create a wondrous kingdom as described in the Bible. Everything turned upside down when in 1993 Gila Cook of Avraham Bryant's archaeological team found a basalt stele at Tel Dan's archaeological site in northern Israel. This stele dates to the 9th century BC. The text was written in Aramaic. The stele's content is possibly a triumphant inscription in which Hazael, king of Aram Damascus, boasts of his victories over the king of Israel and his ally, the king of the house of David. This stele is the oldest extra-biblical source in which the name of King David appears. The stele not only proves that someone like David existed, but that he started a dynasty that controlled significant territory in Canaan. But let's go back to the topic of our today's episode. That is, how did David conquer Jebus, later Jerusalem? To be honest, the first question should be, why did David think it was worth conquering this city and making it the capital of Israel? In addition to the theological reasons I discussed in the previous episodes, there was also a very practical reason why Jerusalem became the perfect city for centralizing power. When we look at the map of the division of Israel's tribes, we see that Jerusalem was in no man's land, for it was on the border of Benjamin's tribe with Judah. No tribe had conquered the city entirely and could not claim it as its own. David knew that Jerusalem could unite all the tribes around one city they all acknowledge as theirs. However, it was not an easy task. Jebus had thick defensive walls set on a hill, an extensive water system with a powerful protected spring, and the fortress of Zion looking down on the valleys. To get to the top of the mountain where Aruna threshing floor and perhaps the religious center was located, one had to obtain permission from the Jebusites. David knew that traditional methods of fighting would not work miracles here. Many armies have tried, and yet they have not conquered the fortress. How then David, with his small army, conquered the city? In the English New American Standard Version, we read, "And David said on that day, whoever strikes the Jebusites is to reach those who limp and those who are blind, who are hated by David's soul, through the water tunnel." The key word in this text is bat sinor, which appears only once in the entire Bible and means tunnel, canal, or pipe. Around 160 years ago, Bible scholars did not understand the meaning of those words. The city of David in Ottoman times was covered entirely with land on which potatoes were grown. Only when General Charles Warren, on the orders of Queen Victoria of England, reaches Jerusalem to start archaeological works and discovers new information about ancient Jerusalem. While hiking in the Kidron Valley, Warren washes his face in the stream and wonders where the water source is coming from. He quickly discovers that there is a whole complex of tunnels under the hill where the potato field was at the time. This is a testimony of ancient civilization. In the following years, the city of David transformed into one huge archaeological site, which confirms the existence of a fortified town with the royal palace and a huge tower protecting the source of the Gihon spring. When David sees the mighty walls, he knows that capturing the city will require special tactics. Perhaps by getting information from one of his spies, David learns about a secret passage to the city leading through one of the water tunnels. Joab volunteers for the dangerous mission and decides to break into the city using one of the entrances at the mountain foot. Today, the same tunnels are used by millions of tourists visiting the city of David. The most famous is the so-called Hezekiah Tunnel, built in King Hezekiah's reign, which we will discuss in future episodes. The biblical text proves that the tricky tactic was successful. Joab gets into the city and probably opens the gates to the city, resulting in a great victory of David. David builds a palace for himself in the place of the Zion fortress and additional protective walls. Today, at the palace site on the so-called Milo, archaeologists have found fragments of the columns from David times. And a robust foundation of a large building. The palace was situated on a hill from where David could observe his subjects, including a woman named Bathsheba. After bringing the Ark of the Covenant, David wants to build a temple for God, but his bloody past as warrior disqualifies him, and the building of the house of God must wait for his son, Solomon. However, the temple site is purchased from the Jebusite Araunah, where an altar to God is built, and the Ark of the Covenant is probably kept. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I encourage you to comment, or you can subscribe to this channel to stay informed about the next monthly episodes on the history of Jerusalem. Best regards, and see you soon!